say that the government side has failed in this debate today from the fact that they're only talking about the short-term impacts of taking this motion. They're only considering the fact that right after you take this motion, there might be a slightly less discrimination, but they've not considered the root cause of all this discrimination. So I'm going to start off my speech with some refutations and then move on to my points. So first of all, starting with some refutations against their first point about prevent discrimination. They have brought up the example of the BLM movement, but we say rather this type of BLM movement, being able to physically see this discrimination, being able to actually see what's happening, the problems in society, is what has brought upon one of the biggest movements within our century, right? We say that because people saw this, they were able to speak out against it. Because there was that video of George Floyd, everybody started marching against it, and therefore it is bringing about change in the status quo. So that is the world we are aiming for. Now, secondly, they have talked about how this will, in their after plan, this will protect these minorities from this outward discrimination. However, we see that the problem is this mindset of superiority. Just because you do not discriminate, like there's slightly less discrimination on the outward, does not change the fact that these majorities feel superior. They feel like they can oppress these minorities. But rather, I will prove to you in my point that this discrimination, that this oppression is going to get worse under their paradigm. Now, thirdly, they have started talking about their second point about the protecting minority religion. However, we say to this that how is it protecting the religion when you are taking away a part of it? For example, it is part of the Muslim religion for women to wear a hijab. It is part of the Jewish religion for men to wear kippah and stuff like that. And we say that by saying to them, you are not allowed to do that, that is directly cutting out a part of their religion and directly undermining their religion. So I do not see how their point stands. Now, moving on to my points for today. First of all, I have 3 points. First of all, the presence of minority in public spheres generates discourse, the generation of discourse. Now, we say that there, as the other side has said, there's issues in society where the minority is being oppressed by these majorities. But we say that that is exactly why these minorities need to be able to be physically present in these public spheres. Why is that? Because they are so small in number, they are going to be otherwise forgotten. Because simply by a number of votes, they do not have enough of a say. Therefore, they have to physically be present in order to be noticed, in order to actually make a change, because if they're physically there and then you see this type of issue, it is picked up on SNS. And once it becomes a societal problem, that is when the politicians start to discuss it. Because as uniquely this is Western countries, they are generally liberal democracies, which means those liberal politicians can pick it up and generate discourse. So why do they need to be publicly present? As I've said, in order for discourse to happen, as I've said, they're a minority. They need to be physically present. But furthermore, people need to live with the fact and see these counter arguments, these counter opinions in order to learn to accept it. We see this from the fact that people are promoting like LGBTQ people, to gay people to hold hands. For example, feminism is trying to, the wave of feminism has changed from the second wave to start promoting the fact that women should be like women. They shouldn't have to change to be like men, but rather promote the idea that women in themselves are fine. They don't have to change, and men have to accept that. The similar way, these religious majorities need to accept that these religious minorities exist and see them and learn to accept them. And once you see them and you see the differences, that is when you start to have discourse. And without discourse, there can be no change. Simply hiding them away, pushing them away so that they are virtually non-existent is not solving any of the problems. Now, second point, about confidence and assurance. So why do people join religions in the first place? As the other side has already mentioned, it is basically for their beliefs. That is why people join religion, because they want mental reassurance. They want mental confidence. That is why a lot of people join religions once they have experienced an accident or a family loss or an emergency. Those types of times when you need mental support is when you join a religion. So what is the duty of these religious leaders? They are there to promote, to try to give these people mental support that they need, right? So this is basically saying that these people look up to their religious leaders. They listen to what they're saying. So we say that when your religious leader tells you you shouldn't publicly display your religion, that is severely going to offend them. That is going to make them feel powerless. That is going to make them lose confidence in their own religion. Like, I can't show my identity because it's inferior to other religions. That is the way they're going to think. And we say this is especially worse than discrimination from these majorities because it comes from the person you respect, the person you look up to, the person you believe in is directly telling you not to show your religion, and that is very harmful to their confidence. Secondly, we say public exposure is part of their identity. For example, as I've given you the example of hijabs and kippas, stuff like that, that is part of their identity. It is not only their religion, their beliefs, but it is also about expressing yourself within your religion. Now, thirdly, about recruiting new members, we say that a huge part of the religious confidence comes in having a community, right? And in order to have a community, you're going to have to recruit members. We see this from the fact that in Shibuya, there are people who are handing out Christianity flyers to try to recruit people. That is why, in order for religion, and spreading religion is also a core part of a core value within many other religions as well. We say, therefore, they should have the right, the freedom of right, especially within these liberal countries. It is part of their freedom to be able to recruit their members. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about what will happen, a third substantive. Now, what will happen once these religious minorities disappear from this public sphere? So, we say that there are two types of people who are going to exploit them when they're not going to be publicly recognized. First of all, the politicians. We say that these right-wing politicians are going to be able to take advantage of the fact that these religious minorities are no longer existent in this public sphere fighting for their rights. They're going to use that as an excuse to say, okay, now they're just going to hide away and believe in it in themselves, so the government doesn't have to support them, for example, which means they're going to deprioritize the support for these minority groups. For example, this might be in the form of reducing the subsidies for these religious schools. Second type of person who is going to take advantage of this situation is the majority religions. As the other side has directly characterized, these religious majorities feel threatened in the status quo. That is already why they're oppressing these minorities. So once this happens, they have the excuse to take it as a symbol of surrender. Take it as the minority saying, okay, we're not going to be so present because the majority is ruling or superior or whatever. And these religious leaders of these majority religions are going to use this rhetoric to tell their people how superior they are, to try to, as in their own religion as well, give confidence to their followers. So they are going to try to use this rhetoric and want to say this. And once these followers learn to believe this, these majorities are going to feel even more superior and worsen the oppression within society. And therefore, we say this is very harmful for the minority, and we are very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.